Imagine this. Every phone on Earth buzzes at the exact same second. Not a news alert, not a weather warning, a single sentence. Do not trust anyone. No source, no explanation, no follow-up. And the terrifying part isn't aliens, it's what that message does to human behavior. Because modern society isn't built on steel or electricity, it's built on an invisible agreement that most people are predictable, and most systems are real. Today I'm breaking down the realistic timeline of what happens next, hour by hour, day by day, when trust gets attacked like a virus. If you like smart, cinematic what-if breakdowns, hit like and subscribe. This channel turns imagination into logic. Now, let's start at the exact second the message hits. The first 30 minutes decide everything, because people split into 3 groups. Group 1, it's a prank. They laugh, they share screenshots. Group 2, it's a hack. They panic and start resetting phones. Group 3, it's real. They go silent and start watching everyone. That third group is the dangerous one. Not because they're violent, because they stop cooperating. And cooperation is the glue of civilization. Here's the first domino. Nobody knows what the message means. Is it about governments, banks, family, neighbors? So the brain fills the gap with its favorite fuel, suspicion. And suspicion multiplies faster than facts. Within minutes, social media becomes 2 things at once, a joke and a battlefield. But the most important reaction doesn't happen online. It happens in the body, heart rate up, cortisol up, threat detection on. When your nervous system switches into danger mode, you don't think clearly. You simplify. You pick a side, and you stop trusting strangers. Now we hit hour 1. Here's what movies get wrong. Trust doesn't collapse with explosions. It collapses with hesitation. At airports, staff stop following normal routines. At hospitals, patients question every instruction. At stores, cashiers feel watched and threatened. The first real damage is micro-friction. 1,000 tiny delays, and that slows everything. One person refuses to hand over ID. One person refuses to accept change. One employee refuses to open a door for a stranger. Now scale that to a planet. Another key moment happens. People stop believing official statements. Because any official statement can be seen as manipulation. If a government says, "Stay calm," half the population hears, "Stay calm because we're hiding something." So the message has already done its job. It makes every authority look suspicious. But the most dangerous systems aren't governments. They're systems that require blind trust to function, like banking. And now we move into the first bank run, without anyone saying the words bank run. Most people don't understand banking. They just trust it. Your card works, your paycheck arrives, your savings exist. But the system only works if people believe it will work tomorrow. When trust breaks, the first question becomes, should I get cash? That question spreads like a plague. Not because everyone is scared of aliens, because nobody wants to be the last person holding numbers on a screen. So within hours, ATMs get emptied, gas stations demand cash, small businesses refuse digital payments. And it's not evil. It's rational behavior under uncertainty. Then the next layer breaks. Credit. Companies stop extending credit. Suppliers demand payment up front. Deliveries slow down. And now you've triggered the real killer. Logistics collapse. Not because trucks disappear, because agreements disappear, and logistics is just agreements moving through space. By the end of day 1, the world isn't destroyed. It's jammed. Everything still exists, but nothing flows. Day 2 is where fear becomes strategy. Now the message goes personal, because once the outside world feels unstable, people retreat to their smallest trust circle. Family, close friends. Us versus them. But the alien message doesn't say don't trust strangers. It says don't trust anyone. That includes your own people. So you get a weird psychological phenomenon, hyper-attachment mixed with suspicion. Couples start checking phones. Friends suspect each other of knowing more. Parents become overprotective. And when trust disappears inside the home, everything gets darker. Because the home is normally where anxiety goes to die. Now it becomes where anxiety lives. Another thing happens on day 2. Conspiracy theories explode. Not the fun kind, the dangerous kind, because in a trust vacuum, the best story wins, not the true one. So you see competing narratives. It's aliens testing us. It's governments faking aliens. It's a hacker group. It's a psychological operation. And once people choose a narrative, they defend it. And they stop talking to anyone who disagrees. That's how society fractures without a single bullet. Day 3 is where groups form, and groups become power. By day 3, humans do what humans always do. They create tribes. Not because they want chaos, because they want certainty. You'll see new rules emerge fast. We only trust people we know personally. We only trust people with verified identity. We only trust people inside our group chat. We only trust people who show proof. And this is where things get scary. Because the alien message doesn't need to destroy the world. It just needs to force the world into smaller units. Smaller units equals less coordination. Less coordination equals less production. Less production equals less food, less fuel, less medicine. Now take a city. If half the city refuses to cooperate with the other half, you don't need an invasion. You've already got a collapse engine. This is also when vigilante behavior appears. Not Mad Max. More like neighborhood checkpoints, community verification, suspicion of outsiders. Again, people aren't evil. They're trying to rebuild trust with primitive tools, but primitive trust systems come with a cost. They create outsiders, and outsiders become threats, even if they aren't. Day 5 is when the first real shortages hit, and shortages make people irrational. Here's the brutal truth. Civilization is a supply chain. Food doesn't exist in cities, it arrives. Medicine doesn't exist in pharmacies, it arrives. Fuel doesn't exist at stations, it arrives. And arrivals depend on trust, contracts, schedules, payments, handoffs. When trust is damaged, every handoff becomes a risk. So deliveries slow, warehouses hold back stock, drivers avoid certain routes, companies demand guarantees that nobody can give, and then shelves start looking thin, not empty like apocalypse movies. Thin. And thin shelves are psychologically lethal because they turn maybe into now. The moment people see scarcity, they overbuy. Overbuying causes actual scarcity. So the message creates a feedback loop. Fear, hoarding, shortage, more fear. By day 7, the global mood shifts. People stop asking, is this real? They start asking, how long can we last? And that question changes behavior permanently. Now we move to week 2. This is where a society either adapts or fractures beyond repair. Week 2 is where invisible systems break. The most fragile ones are healthcare, emergency services, and communication. Healthcare fails not because doctors quit, because patients stop trusting the system. They argue, they refuse protocols, they film staff, they accuse. That slows treatment. And in medicine, delays kill. Emergency services get overloaded by false reports because a distrustful public calls police and ambulances as verification tools. Meanwhile, scammers thrive. If trust collapses, people cling to anything that feels confident. That creates a perfect environment for fake experts, fake cures, fake protection plans. Now we reach the darkest possibility, a trust black market. People start selling identity verification, selling safe access, selling trusted status. And if you can buy trust, trust stops being a moral concept. It becomes a commodity. That's when corruption accelerates. Now the question becomes, could society stabilize? Yes, but only if it rebuilds trust with something stronger than words. It needs proof. And now we enter the countermeasure phase. If I'm rebuilding society under this condition, I don't fight fear with speeches. I fight fear with protocols. 3 layers. Layer 1, authentication. You create a trusted identity chain. In-person verification, physical tokens, 2-person confirmation, local registries. Not perfect, just better than chaos. Layer 2, transparency. Every critical decision has a visible process. Why? Because distrust feeds on hidden steps. You publish how resources are allocated, how rules are enforced, how disputes are resolved. Layer 3. Decentralization. You stop relying on one single authority. You build many small, reliable nodes: local food distribution, local medical triage, local security. Then you connect nodes with trade. Trade is the fastest trust builder on Earth, because when people exchange value peacefully, they start believing cooperation is possible again. So the blueprint is protocols plus transparency plus decentralized stability. But now the big question: why would aliens send that message? What's the point? Here's where it gets interesting. Aliens don't need to bomb us. They can run experiments, and this message is the perfect experiment. 3 possible motives. Motive 1, coordination test. They want to see if humans can resist paranoia and rebuild cooperation. If we can't, we're not ready for contact. Motive 2, leadership mapping. When trust collapses, real leaders appear, not celebrities. The people who create systems, food distribution, medical discipline, conflict resolution. This message forces leaders to reveal themselves. Motive 3, pre-invasion softening. If you can fracture a species into tribes, you reduce their ability to coordinate defense. No defense plan works if nobody trusts anyone. But here's the twist. There's an even scarier motive. They might not be trying to destroy us. They might be trying to upgrade us. Because a society that survives this message would become radically more resilient, more disciplined, more protocol-driven, more mature. And that brings us to the final twist. What if the message isn't telling the truth? What if it's bait? If you wanted to destabilize humans, you'd send violence. If you wanted to study humans, you'd send a puzzle. This message is a puzzle because it forces a decision. Do you obey the warning, or do you build trust anyway? That decision reveals character and systems. A paranoid society collapses. A disciplined society adapts. So the message becomes a mirror. It doesn't create your weakness. It reveals it. And that means the real enemy is not aliens. It's our default human behavior under stress. Rumors, tribalism, revenge thinking. If you beat those, you beat the message. Now we end with the most important part. What would you do in the first 24 hours? Not in theory. In reality. Let's lock it in with a comment question that will explode. So here's the realistic timeline. The message doesn't need to kill anyone. It just needs to break cooperation. Because cooperation is civilization. If this video made you think, hit like. Subscribe for more extreme, logical breakdowns like this. Now comment this. In the first 24 hours, who would you trust first? A. Family only. B. Close friends only. C. Nobody. Solo mode. D. A small group with rules. And if you want a follow-up, I'll do. My exact 24-hour plan to survive the trust collapse. Because the best survival strategy isn't weapons, it's structure.